Put on a suit. Drink water. Don't drink and drive.
Game over!
Take it light. Okay?
Now you're more fluent.
He got three!
Up, Bears.
So this is really good right here. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Good morning, Maple Leaf fans and hockey fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Leafs Lounge. Happy to be here as always with you. I am Josh, your solo pilot today. Justin not available today. So, yeah, but we're going to have a fun show. Going to recap. We got game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final in the books. We will talk a lot about that, do a deep dive into that game, give you my thoughts and kind of what's to come in the series. And then, yeah, we got some Leaf news to hit on. Rumor mill, as always in Leafland, is always on. And there's always things to talk about, whether it's free agent possibilities, trade options. The Mitch Marner conversation is kind of endless at this point. So, yeah, a lot to get to. Just before we get going on the topics at hand, just so you guys know, our show is available on the Sports Fluent YouTube page. So you can check us out there. If you miss any episodes, would love you guys to subscribe to the Sports Fluent channel and check out all the other content. A lot of creators doing some amazing things there. So check us all out there. But yeah, you can catch all the episodes of the Leafs Lounge available there. Just from a personal note, if anyone is looking to find other content of mine, if you're on TikTok, I am Leafs Talk on TikTok, if you didn't already know that. So if you're not already following, I would appreciate a follow there. We do a ton of live chats, pretty much every day, especially during the Leaf season. We're always talking about the team, about the games, and doing kind of a recap. Love getting the audience's thoughts on the game. We even bring some people on to chat live, kind of face-to-face with me. So it's a really good time. I would encourage you to check me out over there. And also, you will find on the Sports Fluent YouTube page, I got the opportunity, got invited to join Jesse O, who is also a part of the Sports Fluent creator team. He does the sports scene show that you can find on iHeartRadio. So I was able to jump on with him as the hockey analyst, hockey expert. And that was a great time. So you can catch that recording as well on the Sports Fluent page or on iHeartRadio. But yeah, definitely check me out there. Let me know your thoughts. Give me comments, any feedback, always appreciated. So as always, if you are tuning in, I don't see much of an audience at this point. Totally get it. It's an early start time. There's no Leaf games on. But if you do join the show here, feel free to send me a comment if you want to jump on live and we can kind of talk, or you can ask a question. So always on this show, we encourage you guys to jump on with me and co-host, and we can kind of discuss anything from Maple Leaf topics to regular NHL topics. So please, would love to have anyone on who is wanting to do that. So let's kind of get into the game. Obviously, tough if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan. Florida takes the game 4-1. They go up 2-0 in the series. Maybe not a daunting task in terms of the ability of Edmonton to come back. Obviously, going home for 2 would be better than the alternative, had they lost both games playing on home ice. But there is a stat out there that 91% of teams who go up 2-0 end up winning that playoff series for hockey in the NHL. So not exactly a good number. If you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, if you're trying to be optimistic about Edmonton's chances of bouncing back. But hey, it has been done before. So it's not to say it can't happen again. But not looking good. And we're kind of getting to a few reasons why maybe things aren't going Edmonton's way. And yeah, if there is really any hope of them able to bounce back in the series. But one thing I want to start with, if you're a Calgary Flame fan or any kind of fan of another Canadian hockey team, not Edmonton, this is probably a meme, a clip that you will be seeing and probably sending to your Edmonton Oiler fan or friends who are Edmonton Oiler fans for a long time, probably all summer, if Edmonton does not come back in the series. But tell me if you saw this one.
He's like, hey, but because he was in concern, look at the tap out there by Bouchard. He's like, hey.
I mean, is that not just like visual evidence of how this series has gone? Just the tap out, Evan Bouchard. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Can very much sum up where Edmonton fans, the Edmonton Oiler team is probably thinking right now, what's in their head that, yeah, this is not going to be an easy bounce back for them. So yeah, as we said, 4-1 the last night. Florida kind of flipped the script from what we saw in game one, where Edmonton controlled most of the play, had the majority of the shots on goal. Lot of folks who watched the game felt Bobrovsky literally stole that game, talking about game one, but he didn't have much work in game two. And Florida kind of controlled the play. The Edmonton Oilers had their only goal halfway through period one. Kind of a fluky, soft goal on Bobrovsky from Matthias Ekholm. Kind of a knuckle puck that beat him 5-hole. Not a goal that you expect Bobrovsky to allow. I think they were saying that was the first goal he's given up through the 5-hole. So pretty crazy that that's how the game opened up. And I think it felt like despite Edmonton not having a lot of shots on goal, that was, I believe, their first shot on goal, the one that went in. It felt like, okay, this could be a turning point for Edmonton. They weren't getting any breaks, it felt like, in game one. And then here, not even 10 minutes into the game, they have a break and they're up 1-0. But from there, that's kind of, as loud as the Edmonton Oilers attack got. They finished with 19 shots on goal only had 7 through the first 2 periods. And Florida just, looked like the better team, more in control of the possession. Edmonton had their looks on the power play, but couldn't capitalize, and kind of felt like, if they weren't going to do it on the power play, it wasn't going to happen, because 5-on-5, Florida definitely dominated. Panthers capitalized on some bad defensive zone turnovers from the Oilers. Most notably the Bouchard, where he basically put it on a tee for Evan Rodriguez. Evan Rodriguez's first goal of the game. He had 2. So yeah, it was just kind of a a game of not so much unfortunate circumstances, but just some turnovers that obviously didn't go Edmonton's way. I mean, they had a 5-minute power play. They got cut short when they took a penalty. So just a bunch of events that kind of tilted the ice Florida's way. And like one of the stories were some questionable hits in the game. You had earlier on the Warren Foegele hit. He got that 5-minute penalty for kneeing. And then the game misconduct. When you look at that, you probably think like you likely should have just been a 2-minute penalty. And I think most of the analysts and hockey people out there are on that side of it, that the 5-minute in the game felt a little bit harsh. But anyways, Edmonton didn't get or Florida didn't get the full benefit of that 5-minute power play. They took a penalty. I believe earlier I said it was Edmonton who took the penalty to cut the 5-minute power play short, but reverse that. Like Edmonton didn't get in a rhythm. Really, the only one who was going was McDavid. And he only had 3 shots on net, but he was dancing all night long. Maybe a little bit too much, because it felt like he was about hero puck the entire time whenever McDavid was on the ice. And everybody else, from his line mates, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, when they put Draisaitl up there on line 1, even on the power play, it was like anytime McDavid didn't have the puck, there wasn't anything being generated or any possibility of shot attempts. So, it was a very unfortunate game. Too many passengers for the Oilers from Draisaitl, Kane, Nugent Hopkins, even their depth players, Holloway, McLeod, Henrique, just a bunch of cardio merchants out there. And then talking about the other questionable hit that we saw was in the third period, Draisaitl, kind of late in the third period, caught Barkov with an elbow to the chin, and that knocked Barkov out of the game. He did not return. Wasn't really much of an update on what his availability could look like for game 3. I would have to guess he probably won't be an option, but they do have the extra day in between games here, so maybe he is able to return for game 3, but got to think he'll be going through concussion tests because that was an ugly looking hit. But that only got 2 minutes. And I think there was a lot of Florida Panther fans questioning why there wasn't a more severe penalty. But again, with that one, I felt the 2-minute penalty was fine. So that was kind of the only thing we saw Draisaitl do. I thought he had a terrible game, looked very disinterested all night, kind of did a lot of flybys in the zone, both D zone and offensive zone. Took the early end of a lot of shifts when it seemed like they might have had momentum or the ability to keep possession. So didn't look too good. If you're an Oiler fan and we don't see Draisaitl bounce back with a good performance in game 3 and game 4, I mean, the way he looked, it almost appeared that he was signaling that, yeah, I'm pretty much done in Edmonton. I'm going to pack my bags and I will be going as soon as is possible. So not a good look. Obviously, Oiler fans, the worst part is you're down 2-0. But in the back of their minds, you got to be thinking, is this a chance that if we don't capitalize on to win the cup, this team could look very different in the coming 2 years? Draisaitl definitely has the final year left on his contract, but doesn't appear like he's interested in talking extension this summer. Obviously, that can change, but for right now, it appears that Edmonton will kind of be looking at, I guess, a similar position to the Maple Leafs are in with Mitch Marner, where they could be walking one of their top players into free agency. Because if players not willing to sign a contract or the team isn't willing to pay them what they're looking for, it could be a tough sell to keep that player there. And are you going to miss the window to actually trade that player? Excuse me. So we will see where that goes. In terms of goaltending for Edmonton's side, Stuart Skinner was not good. I mean, he obviously had a lot more chances, made a couple decent saves, but definitely at least 2 of those goals were not very good. I'd say the first 2 goals are ones that you would like him to have. Not the softest of goals, but definitely ones that if you're going to win a Stanley Cup playoff game, especially playing against the Florida Panthers, you need your goalie to make the save. And before the series started, one of the keys for me for Edmonton, if they were going to have a chance to win, was that Stuart Skinner needed to be the best goalie on the ice in at least a handful of the games here. And obviously through 2, he has not. He's been the clear second best, and that's going to be tough. If that continues, if that trend continues, like Bobrovsky didn't even have much work to do, but, aside from that first goal where it was obviously a soft one, obviously wasn't going to get beat after that, made some key saves. And he was obviously the best goalie of the night. Wasn't a situation where, Florida or Bobrovsky goalied Edmonton because they just didn't have enough chances. But Edmonton's going to need Skinner to be better. And heading back to Edmonton, you got to think Oilers need to take both games. If they go down 3-1 heading back to Florida, I think it's curtains. There's no way Edmonton is winning 3 in a row. I don't even think they can take 2 in a row, but 3 in a row, I don't see that happening. But in saying that, it could be a lot easier if Barkov is out of the lineup, right? And game 3 would probably be the most likely one for the Oilers to get. They're going to obviously be the ones who feel they need to either make a lineup change, they need to make a play style change, switch things up on how they're setting up on the power play, just do something different. and the extra couple days here between game 2 and 3 should help them come up with something that enables them to at least have a bounce back in game 3. And yeah, when I talked about kind of the script being flipped in terms of how Florida played in game 2, from an expected goals for perspective, Florida had a 63%, almost 63% expected goals for share in game 2, which was essentially the complete flip of what happened in game 1, where Edmonton had about a 63% share of the expected goals. So quite different. In terms of high danger scoring chances, Edmonton had 0 in game 2. And that's probably a recipe for not winning hockey games, especially against a goalie that's dialed in like Bobrovsky is. Florida only had 4, but yeah, they obviously got the benefit of some turnovers and, Skinner's goaltending not being up to par. So yeah, we'll see what happens in game 3. But definitely feel Florida's got the stranglehold in the series now, and we will see how it plays out. Tough that we have to wait a couple days now to get game 3 in there. But like the NBA Finals, we've got the home team, the favorite, up 2-0. And I don't think too many people are overly confident that the underdog, the road team, can come back. So we very well could see off-season mode enter into both NHL and NBA sooner than maybe most of us would like. These series could both be over in 4 or 5 games. Who knows? But not looking good for the team down 2-0 in either NHL or NBA. So with that being said, let's get into some other hockey news and notes, and then touch upon some Maple Leaf news. So one thing that came out, a news story that I'm sure most of you heard and might be familiar with, Cap Friendly, the amazing site resource for NHL fans and clearly NHL teams as well, that gives full salary disclosure and information for all players, for all teams in the NHL, as well as minor league players, everything kind of related to contracts that each NHL team has committed to is available on that Cap Friendly site. But they have been bought by the Washington Capitals. Just kind of very weird that that's going on, that took place. I mean, obviously Cap Friendly is a fantastic site. I use it a lot, probably on it every day, just for kind of checking out, okay, whether it's looking at free agents that are available, the Maple Leaf commitments in terms of their salary and where they are in terms of cap room. So I'm using it a ton. I know a lot of hockey fans are as well, but it no longer will be available to the public. I believe July 5th is the day that the transaction, the sale of Cap Friendly, is made official. So it will become property of the Washington Capitals. And yeah, no longer available to the public. So very unfortunate. If you are looking for another option, I would recommend Puckpedia. Great site as well. Obviously a very different look, so will take time to get used to. I know they are in the process of adding some roster management, kind of armchair GM tools that I think a lot of people enjoyed with Cap Friendly. They've previously had that on Puckpedia, but it looks like they're revamping it or adding new components to it, which should be pretty cool. So once that becomes available, we might not be missing Cap Friendly all that much, but a little bit tough now that we don't have it available. And then who knows, maybe Puckpedia won't even be available for much longer because some other NHL team will be like, shoot, I was relying on Cap Friendly for a lot of things, and now I don't have it. I just find it funny that we actually, in this day of age and with all the resources and money and financial power that these NHL teams have, that they don't have their own version of Cap Friendly, Like they don't have an internal in-house option for building that kind of information database. visibility to their contract implications, cap room, and all of that. I mean, I would think the majority, or maybe not even the majority, but I would predict half the teams probably have their own in-house tool that they're using. But the fact that Washington felt a need to buy basically the infrastructure, which is kind of what I think they're buying, not so much any of the people, employees of Cap Friendly. I think they just want the tool to use for their own kind of either assumptions or kind of cap crunching. It's just very strange that not all NHL teams have something available to them that they're already using. So found that kind of a interesting story. But yeah, you've got basically less than a month to do all your mock trades and mock roster builds for the Maple Leafs or whoever your favorite team is, because that's one of the more fun components of Cap Friendly. You can kind of build your own. You can kind of say, let's start with next season. Let's build a team. You pick what free agents you want to sign. You can make a trade. You negotiate not negotiate the contracts, but you make the terms of the contract for anyone you're signing. It's pretty cool. You can do buyouts and everything. All some cool features that Cap Friendly has that will also be available on Puckpedia for the most part. So that is all with the general NHL topics. Let's get into Maple Leaf topics. So one of the big things floating around, news story, Max Domi, UFA. He was in the news after confirming that there was an interest in returning to the Maple Leafs, kind of as expected, but he did note that the two sides were talking. He wasn't going to reveal anything further in terms of where things are at with those discussions, which is understandable. But he did also mention that new head coach Craig Berube, Domi felt that he was exactly what this team needs. So take that for what it's worth, but at least it feels like he would have motivation to return to the team if they can figure out a contract. So that was kind of encouraging. We've been hearing a lot of speculation on what sort of AAV or term Domi could be looking for, that it could be as much as 5 years and over 5 mil, 5.5. Like I've said before on this show, I think anything over 4 mil for Max Domi feels a little bit rich. Like, I love the player. I love the person. I love what he brings to the locker room. But you're talking about a guy coming off a 9-goal season. I'm not sure in what world that equates to 5 million plus on a new contract. Nor do I feel that giving him any more than 3 or 4 years should be something that Treliving and Shanahan should be entertaining. So my optimal contract would be something maybe around 2-3 years at about, no more than 4.25. I think it's unreasonable to expect that contract value for Max Domi to be anything below 3.5. He's coming off 2 consecutive years where he took a 1-year, $3 million contract. We now have a salary cap increase. For him to not expect any sort of increase just based on inflation, I think would be unfair and probably, lacking in realism. So I think there is a very high likelihood that whatever contract Domi signs and wherever it is, whether it's Toronto or another team, that contract value will probably be between 3.5 and let's say 4.75. So hoping Maple Leafs can get a deal done there. What I do worry about, though, is how quick the Maple Leafs will be willing to sign any of their UFAs, especially before July 1st, knowing that they've got this whole Mitch Marner fiasco to figure out, which obviously may or may not be figured out, not even this summer, not even by the trade deadline, who knows. But I would think from the Leafs' perspective, they would hope that they can get clarity on what teams are looking to make an offer for Mitch Marner, what teams maybe Mitch Marner would entertain a trade in terms of where he might go next. So I think all those things likely will happen shortly. And Frank Cervelli, kind of who is already, he basically doubled down on his belief that Mitch Marner will not be returning to the Maple Leafs. And he feels that over the next 3 weeks, they're going to put a full court press on trying to at least investigate what teams may or may not be an option and present any of those teams that are interested with that, present that to Mitch Marner and his camp. I believe it was either him or Elliot Friedman who said that the strategy for the team will more be to see what teams are interested, see if they do get an offer, and only then will they be asking Mitch Marner to waive, which kind of makes sense in terms of the cadence of how you're doing that. I think out of respect to Mitch Marner, rather than asking him to name 10 teams that he might want to go to, and then finding out all 10 of those teams either don't want him or aren't willing to offer something the Maple Leafs need, this seems like the better approach. Talk to teams, have teams call you. Once you get a trade that you like, maybe you go to Mitch Marner then and say, okay, here's what we have on the table. Here's a team that is interested. They feel that they could get you signed to a new deal. Are you open and willing? And hopefully that will be how we see things play out. Now, unlikely that will get turned around quickly. You have to think that from the Maple Leafs side, they're going to hold out for a great offer that may not ever come, but probably won't be coming that quickly. Teams will probably try to make it as difficult on the Maple Leafs as possible, see if they show weakness and see if they lessen their asking price, lower their asking price. So it could be a while, guys, before we get any kind of clarity on Mitch Marner. But reason I brought that up is I'm not sure until you get that clarity if you can go out there and just throw a lot of money at Max Domi, Tyler Bertuzzi, Joel Edmondson, another player that has been speculated to have a mutual interest in returning to Toronto. I just don't feel confident you can go out there and hand out contracts without knowing what's going to happen with Mitch Marner. I mean, perhaps if Max Domi says, yeah, you know what, let's get this done. Let's do 3 years, 3.25, 4 years, 3.25. Yeah, Maple Leafs can probably figure out in the budget, especially while they still have cap friendly available for them to use. They should be able to make that assumption on, okay, either way, this deal for Max Domi is something we need to take advantage of or need to exercise and move forward with. So maybe that's a scenario that could work. But otherwise, I think they're going to have to wait it out a little bit. Other discussions that have been going on, reports on the goalie side of things, because obviously on top of needing to upgrade their blue line, there's been quite a bit of news on potential goalies that could be made available to the Maple Leafs. They've been connected to a potential Jacob Markstrom transaction, trade with the Calgary Flames. He was connected to both the Maple Leafs and Ottawa, which Ottawa is a very interesting one, knowing they still have Korpisalo with a fair bit of term and money left. I'm not sure how they clear themselves out of that contract, that absolute grenade, but they apparently have an interest, which you can understand. They need to upgrade their goaltending, but still the front runner appears to be New Jersey. Going back to the trade deadline, they seem to be the one who was reported to have maybe the most interest, or at least putting a package together that was the most appealing to Calgary. I don't really see a fit there. Obviously, there's going to be the connecting of the dots with Brad Treliving, who, when he was GM in Calgary, acquired Jacob Markstrom. Beyond that, I'm not sure there should be any viable reason or motivation for the Maple Leafs to want to bring in Markstrom. I think he's a very good goalie, but I think at his age, I believe he's 34, has 2 years left at $6 million AAV, if I'm not mistaken, in or around there. Unless you're getting retention on that, I'm not sure he's the guy I would target. He had a 905 save percentage, which is not terrible, but also not great. And you have to wonder if he'd even be a upgrade over Joseph Woll. I get wanting to bring in a goalie, a veteran goalie, to form a tandem with Woll. I think that is needed. I'm not sure that goalie you need to bring in should be someone who's probably not in the top 10, maybe probably top 15, but I'm not sure top 10 right now. At that money, I'm not sure that's the right fit, because I think you might find out even in training camp early in the season that, oh, Woll's actually better than Markstrom, and we probably should have known that already. We just had the question marks on his health, his tendency to get injured anytime he has to make a save or he has to dive back or extend himself. So I get not feeling confident in Woll playing 50 games next year, but I don't think you go out and get someone like a Jacob Markstrom, even UC Saros, who has been talked about, especially in connection to a Mitch Marner trade possibility. I don't think either Saros or Markstrom are the guys I'd be going for. Because if you're trading Marner or even a first-round pick for either of those goalies, the assumption would be that you're also going to be looking to extend them if you're giving up that type of price, right? And I'm not sure either of these guys are goalies that I would want to right now make that long-term commitment to. Saros also had an okay season, but it was definitely one of his worst in a few years. So even him, not the guy I would want to commit to. In a tandem with Woll on paper, that looks phenomenal. I just don't know if I'd be that confident that Saros is any better than Woll. And obviously, he's on a good contract worth one more year, good money, I should say, at $5 million. But I just don't believe that's the right transaction or the right acquisition, especially if it means giving up a Marner or a first-round pick. I feel there's a better way to manage the Mitch Marner asset. So for me, I mean, they've talked about Laurent Brossoit from the Winnipeg Jets. He's coming off a fantastic season where he was obviously the backup to Hellebuck, so didn't play too many games. But there's been reports that there is mutual interest between player and team, talking about the Maple Leafs, obviously, with the speculation being that he could ask for around $3 million a year. I'd be okay with that, because you wouldn't have to give him a long-term contract. If you told me he'd come over for 2, even 3 years at around $3 million, combined with Woll only making whatever it is, $750K, that to me is a goaltending tandem that I would be very confident in. Like, obviously, it's not like having Hellebuck, Ottinger, Bobrovsky, Igor. Clearly not, but you're not getting those guys. So rather than trying to find, the next tier of goalies and maybe overpaying because you feel you need to try and pretend that guy could be elite, in terms of either looking at Jacob Markstrom, a John Gibson, a UC Saros, I'd rather go cheaper, knowing that you don't have a ton of cap space, as we know. You need to upgrade your blue line. If you don't bring back Domi and Bertuzzi, you definitely need to add at least 2 more top 9 forwards who probably aren't going to come cheap if you get the right guys. So to me, that would be a great value add, Laurent Brossoit. Last 2 years, he's had a .927 save percentage, granted in somewhat limited work. But yeah, coming off that 1-year contract in Winnipeg, he was only making $1.75 million. So understandable that I believe he turned 31 this year. He's going to be looking for a little bit more assurance of getting some work, whether he gets to compete for the number 1 job or it's handed to him. That would appear to be what he's looking for. And yeah, obviously a raise off what he was making. So I would be good with that sort of scenario. My top target actually for a netminder would be Alex Stolarz. Similar to Brossoit, around the same age, 30. I think he's 1 year younger, actually, but he'd be my top target to form a tandem with Joel. He's been a little bit more consistent in his career over Brossoit. Brossoit, as I mentioned, last 2 years have been good, but prior to that, it was a little bit of like one okay year, one not so good year. Whereas Stolarz, even though he hasn't really been getting much starter work, he has played a little bit more than Brossoit, especially last year, and he's performed just as well. And, he's a former second round pick by Philly. I feel this goalie has more potential in terms of being able to assume a heavier workload. So he'd be my top target. I don't know what sort of money contract he'd be after, but I would kind of go with between the two of those guys, whichever one gives you the more favorable term. I think with Stolarz, maybe a little bit more willingness to go a little bit heavier on the term because of his age, but for the most part, it's kind of very similar targets there for me, similar age, similar capability, similar question marks on whether they could be a true number one guy. But again, I feel that I'd rather take my chances on a cheaper guy like that, who has, at least in a smaller sample size, shown to be capable, rather than over investing in a guy who's probably on the downside of their career and going to cost you a lot more. Because these two goalies were two of like the top 3 or 4 goalies statistically. Again, it's a smaller sample size, so it's tough to kind of compare them up with the Demkos, Bobrovskis, Jake Ottingers, Igors of the world. They're not facing as many shots, not in as many games, probably not playing against the best competition. But I mean, still, especially Stolarz, he had pretty much the best goaltending metrics, underlying stats from any goalie in the NHL. I think having played minimum of 20 games, Stolarz had the best underlying stats. His GAA better than expected was number 1 in the league, as was his save percentage above expected. So just some fun kind of numbers there to make you feel a little bit more confident if the Leafs were to add a goalie like that. So that's where I'm at with goaltending. I think to finally put a bow on the episode, free agent defenseman, we continue to kind of hear speculation that the Maple Leafs could be after someone like a Brett Pesce. Brandon Montour would be one of the other big names that maybe the Maple Leafs would target. If the Florida Panthers, or if and when the Florida Panthers win a cup, I would expect that they try to bring Brandon Montour back. But I mean, it's going to be tough for them to bring all their guys back. They have quite a few free agents, namely Montour, Sam Reinhart, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Kulikov, Anton Lundell is a RFA. So he might be easier to extend, but I don't know if they can afford Brandon Montour and Sam Reinhart unless they get your typical no state tax discount that we know Florida, Tampa, Vegas seems to always benefit from. So who knows if Montour will be available. But yeah, Montour, Pesce, Brady Shea, Nikita Zadorov, Chris Tanev, Dylan DeMilo, Brendan Dillon, Matt Dumba. There's a ton of guys out there. Guy I probably like the most that probably we're not hearing about very often because maybe they're going to re-sign him, it would be Jalen Chatfield. I think in terms of the money that you're going to have to pay to get some of those bigger names that I mentioned, Jalen Chatfield, to me, like, he's not a top pairing D-man, but second pair guy, right shot, has a good shot, skates well, kind of good two-way defender. You look at his goals per 60, he's in the top 10, I think, top 15. So I think there's more offensive upside there. Obviously, during the season, he was playing behind Shea, Pesce, Orlov. So he wasn't getting a ton of minutes, a ton of work. But when Pesce went down in the playoffs, Chatfield was like basically their number 2 or number 3 guy. And I thought he performed really well. Just a very smart player. Can skate himself out of trouble, but had some good underlying metrics in terms of goals allowed per 60 when he was on the ice. So Didn't really get a lot of power play time, but I feel he could be an option for like a power play 2 unit. So Chatfield would definitely be a target of mine. But I mean, I think he was basically making well under 1 mil on his last contract. So kind of unheralded guy coming into UFA. Not sure how many teams will give him a long-term deal. But if you could get him for 3-4 years, I don't know, in between 2 and 3 mil, I think that would be excellent value there. So he would be a guy I would look at, again, a right shot as well, which we know the Maple Leafs need. Because right now, Leafs are bringing back only Riley, Jake McCabe, Simone Benoit, and Timmins in terms of guys with NHL experience. You've got Cade Weber, the college free agent that they signed or actually traded with Carolina and then signed on an ELC. So he's on the books right now. You can kind of look at him as on the 5th spot in the blue line, but I don't think the expectations for him should be to be in the opening night lineup. I think it's possible to envision an Easton Cowan and or Fraser Minton being a part of that opening night lineup. Cade Weber would probably be a long shot, but I guess it all depends on how many defensemen Tree Living is able to add or tries to add, because I think they're pretty high on Cade Weber, but I would think probably beginning the year with the Marlies is the most likely scenario for Cade Weber. Obviously, the Leafs have to figure out what they're going to do with pending UFAs, Joel Edmondson, Ilya Lyubushkin. With Edmondson, there's been reports of mutual interest, so he could be an option. You got Timothy Liljegren in RFA. I've kind of been on record here not really liking the idea of bringing back Timothy Liljegren. I'd rather explore, a possible trade for the player and see what you could get back there. So that would be my preference, but we will see if he's maybe willing to take a 1-year deal, another prove-it deal. But again, I mean, will the player want to do that? You know, it seemed like he already did that with his current contract. He'd probably be like, okay, how many more chances do I give this team to give me the opportunity I feel I deserve? And he might be hoping to, book a ticket out of Toronto and move on, fresh environment. So, yeah, we'll see where the blue line looks or where the blue line changes go. But I'm excited to see it because I think that's where we'll see the most turnover with ads and potential guys from last year's team. Obviously, Gio, Brody won't be a part of the team. Can almost guarantee that. So the blue line will look quite different. It depends on what targets Tree Living and Shanahan have in mind and who they're able to add. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll definitely be talking about all those matters and potential free agent moves as we go further into the off season. But yeah, hopefully we'll get into off season mode sooner than later if the Florida Panthers take care of business and help me cash my future ticket on them. I had them as a -1.5 spread on the series. So as long as Edmonton doesn't push the thing to a Game 7, I will cash in rather nicely on Florida. And they've also won me some money with same game parlay bets the first two games. So yeah, all about Florida. Time to hunt. So yeah, that's all for today, guys. Appreciate anyone who did join in. And as always, subscribe to Sports Fluent. You can find all the episodes of the Leafs Lounge over there. And again, for people who maybe weren't tuned in before, I mentioned you can find me on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, I am Leafs Talk over there. So we have some very interesting and fun live chats on my account there, the channel. So follow Leafs Talk and you can join. And I post a lot of content, content every day. Most of it is fun, entertaining things, but also a lot of my opinions on what the Leafs should do and stuff like that we also carry on into the live. So would love to see you guys there as well. If you've seen these episodes, let me know in the live. Would love to know where my support's coming from, and always thankful for everybody who tunes in and supports myself and the content that I'm creating here. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. We will talk next week. So enjoy. At least I guess it will be game 3 and 4, because I think game 2 or game 5, if necessary, would be Tuesday night, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Wednesday, but I think it would be Tuesday night, because I think they would go Thursday, Saturday, and then probably Tuesday. So I think Tuesday would be game 5. So if that's the case, we'll be able to tee it up next week. So enjoy it, guys, and we will talk soon. Have a good one.